Some stories are meant to frighten, some are meant to entertain, but some stories are alive, waiting for the right person to hear them. This is one of those stories. Because once you listen, you might start noticing details in your own home you never saw before, and it will not forget you. Before we begin, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. The stories here are connected in ways you might not realize, and missing one could mean missing the warning that was meant for you. There is a house at the edge of a forest that no map remembers. It's a crooked, narrow structure with peeling paint and windows that seem to stare like unblinking eyes into the darkness. This house once belonged to Elias Driscoll, a man whose obsession with perfection had grown so consuming that the townspeople whispered his name, as if speaking it aloud might summon the horrors inside. Elias was no ordinary craftsman. He was a master of capturing life in miniature, creating dolls so realistic they appeared to breathe in the shadows of their rooms. Their glass eyes reflected truths that mortals were not meant to perceive. Elias lived there with his wife, Eleanor, and their daughter, Margaret, a quiet, watchful child who often spoke to objects as if they possessed memories and intentions. He promised them safety, permanence, immortality, in the only way he knew how, through the creation of his dolls and, ultimately, the construction of a miniature replica of their home. This dollhouse was so exacting in detail that every creaking floorboard, every cracked tile, every slanting corner had been reproduced to perfection. At first, the dolls were just companions, silent observers of the family's daily life. But then Eleanor fell ill. Margaret began waking at night, screaming that her room had changed while she slept. Elias descended into desperation, refusing to accept the impermanence of human life. In his study, surrounded by tools, powders, and unholy manuscripts, he worked endlessly. He sought to capture not only the likeness of his family, but the very essence of their consciousness. He crafted rituals whispered about only in legends, calling upon forces that had no name, no mercy, and no patience for the foolish. On a night when the wind rattled the shutters and the moon cast cruel slivers of light across the walls, he completed the ritual. The one that would bind Eleanor into the dollhouse itself, transferring their awareness into porcelain figures with delicate, lifelike features. Their eyes were wide with the faintest trace of recognition, their expressions frozen in what could only be described as silent horror. When the morning came, their bodies were gone from the world. Only the dolls remained, standing upright on miniature carpets in a miniature living room. Yet even as Elias felt a twisted sense of triumph, he noticed subtle disturbances. Doors in the dollhouse opened when no hand moved them. Footsteps echoed softly in the tiny hallways. Whispers carried an impossible cadence, as if the dolls were no longer passive observers but sentient beings aware of their imprisonment. He rationalized, as all men driven by obsession do, that expansion and perfection would satisfy them. So he built more rooms, more furniture, more dolls, and the house itself seemed to grow in response. Miniature corridors appeared where none had been planned. Attic spaces formed above ceilings that should not have existed. Doors and windows manifested with uncanny symmetry, yet their design was entirely alien. Soon, visitors to the house began to vanish after crossing its threshold. First it was animals, then curious townsfolk. Their last glimpses were of figures standing in the windows of the dollhouse, figures that mirrored their own terrified expressions. Elias, now alone in a house alive with observation, continued his work. He believed that by multiplying the dolls and rooms, he could stabilize the world he had broken. But the dolls were not grateful, nor were they forgiving. The consciousness he had trapped within them rebelled in ways subtle and devastating. They moved when unobserved, whispering secrets that gnawed at the craftsman's sanity. Until one day, perhaps a week or a year later, time had lost all meaning, he realized that the house no longer belonged to him. The dollhouse had become a vessel for countless presences, a miniature cosmos of suffering and awareness that demanded constant attention and sacrifices. The house began to extend its influence beyond the boundaries of wood and stone, shifting reality itself. It made small, uncanny alterations in the town. Doors appeared where they should not, rooms vanished. Reflections in mirrors moved independently of their owners. Neighbors reported seeing tiny figures in their peripheral vision moving along walls. And sometimes at night a soft voice would call a name not spoken aloud, as though the house had learned the intonation and rhythm of each individual it desired to claim. Elias, though he understood he was no longer the master, could not stop. His identity had fused with the house, his essence seeping into its walls, its floors, and the ever-growing dollhouse. So that even now, should anyone find the house at the forest's edge, they would see a figure through the window. It looks disturbingly like a man, but his eyes carry the void of eternity. If you peer closer, the house seems to breathe subtly, expanding and contracting. The dolls within shift their posture and expression as if they were alive, their tiny mouths parting in silent whispers. If one were foolish enough to enter, they might notice a staircase that leads to a room that could not exist, walls that close in subtly when your back is turned, and a certainty that countless eyes are observing, cataloging, judging every thought, every hesitation, every heartbeat. Finally, you would understand. The house does not merely hold dolls, it holds souls. It accumulates them, feeding upon their fears and desires. And the most terrifying realization is that the dollhouse has no end. It is constantly growing, expanding, adapting to any who encounter it. So that even if you escape, the house remembers you, and it waits. And it waits. Someday, it may learn your name, your habits, your fears. It will invite you to enter, offering promises of comfort and permanence. And if you accept, you will find yourself shrinking, your consciousness folding into porcelain, your movements slowed to doll-like precision. You will be trapped in a room that mirrors your own memories, yet twisted and wrong. And the last sound you will hear is the faint tap of tiny porcelain fingers against wooden floors, and a voice that is unmistakably your own, whispering the truth you ignored for too long. The house never forgets. It only waits, and it has waited for you. If this story unsettled you, leave a comment telling me what terrified you the most. And don't forget to like the video, subscribe, and explore the other stories on this channel, because there are more houses that are still waiting and they are never empty.